Welcome to this session on 10 new gems in Serverless 360. I am Irilaracy, product consultant of Serverless 360, and I'm here to present to you the 10 new capabilities that has been added into Serverless 360. Since we met last time, we have considerably developed Serverless 360 to accommodate new technology stack entities. Like now we have got management and monitoring for web jobs and monitoring capabilities for web apps and API management. Not just this, we have also considerably enhanced the product functionalities. Like we have brought in Explorer view for composite applications. You can now define a topology diagram for each of your composite app to better understand your composite application, or you can do perform end-to-end tracking of your business processes that are can be mapped onto our composite application. With this brief introduction, I'm going to take you in detail through the top 10 new gems that has been added into Serverless 360. Number one is an enhanced composite application. Over a period of time, we have been consistently improving the composite application experience, considering huge organizations which would have number of business units and number of products in turn in each business units. So the hierarchy needs to be depicted in an explorer view. And the team that works with the composite application need to have a better understanding of the application. And this can be made possible with the help of a topology diagram. So to achieve all this, here comes enhanced composite applications from Serverless 360. So what we see here in the composite application dashboard is an explorer view that will help you depict your organization's hierarchy in the Serverless 360's dashboard. You can create composite application groups that would accommodate a group of composite applications. If you need an overview of all your applications, view them in the list view. And if you need to get a focused view of few applications in the business unit and with a little more detail, switch to the card view. Here, as you observe, you can find the details of what are all the entities that constitute this composite app and what is their status at this point in time based on the monitors that we have created. Not just this, imagine your support team needs to have better understanding of this composite app. They need to know how does each of these entities interact with each other. How come failure in one of the entity would affect the other one? To have a better understanding of this system, now you can define a topology diagram for each of your composite application. And the status of the entities based on the monitors that we have created would be readily available on this topology diagram page. You can click on an entity to get to know the details of its failures, like which alert, which a monitor has created an alert and what is the reason behind this failure would be readily available right in the topology diagram itself. This diagram auto refreshes every minute so that you have an instant feedback on failure in any of your associated entities. And you also get an understanding of how does the workflow of this application work. We have also brought in a search capability that will help you easily locate an composite app, a resource, an entity, or a monitor. Anything can be quickly searched and you can directly get into the details of that resource by clicking on the search result. So these are certain new capabilities that we have added to get a better utilization of composite applications. Number two is an end-to-end tracking. Where did the message go? Is this $1 billion question that your support team huddles to answer? And here then we have a solution to enable your support team to provide better customer support. You can define business processes within a composite application in Serverless360. So every single composite application can have a number of business processes. For example, an e-commerce scenario can have number of business processes like purchasing an order or an invoice processing or a shipment. All these can be multiple business processes that would in turn occur within the same composite application. But what I can perform here is I can define business processes, I can define transactions within every business process, and I can do an end-to-end tracking of these transactions within Serverless 360. So to achieve this, we will have to do some amount of instrumentation in your business process workflow definition. Say if your logic app is the one which defines your business workflow, you will have to invoke Serverless 360's APIs within your logic app to define the stages in your business transaction. So here you have got a tracking menu within each of your composite apps that will let you perform business process monitoring. So here I have got a list of transactions that has happened in last 7 days in this composite application. I can get into the details of this transaction to understand what are all the different stages that are a part of this transaction and what was the status of each of this transaction, how much time did each of my transaction take. All this information can be gathered from this end-to-end monitoring, and you can also find the tracked data at every stage of your business transaction. See, from here I find that a specific transaction has failed. I can get into the details of failure also with the help of Serverless 360. See, now in this case, if I have the exception details readily available, it would be of great use. Even that is possible. You can define an exception, or you can track an exception, and that can be made available right here. And you can search or fire queries using with a similar syntax, like you can search by keywords, and you can save the search also for a quick access for the next point in time. So I can get into the details of the transaction. I find a stage has failed. I can click on that to get the exception details readily available. We are enhancing this capability in the upcoming releases with reprocessing capabilities too. Say like if you find a stage has failed, going forward you would be able to reprocess that stage even. You can select that stage and choose to reprocess them. Number 3 is correlation on logic apps resubmitted runs. So when our logic app define and workflow in our business application, failure in the logic app is something that needs to be looked into. And there could be need to resubmit these failed runs to restore the business. But the challenge here is, though I can perform this resubmission through the Azure portal also, I do not find any correlation between the resubmitted runs and the runs which are a resubmission of a parent run. So what I need to get is an correlation between the runs which has been resubmitted. And I would also need to ignore few runs for my further business investigation. We overcome this correlation challenge between the parent and the child run with the help of uh, tags. Say here in my e-commerce application, I have a logic app which has got a number of executions. As you are aware of, in Serverless 360, you can access the trigger and run histories of a logic app at any point in time. The real challenge in resubmitting runs through Azure portal is you don't get to know the correlation between the resubmitted and the child runs. But here we overcome the challenge with the help of tags. Those runs which has been resubmitted would get a tag resubmitted, and those child runs which has been resubmission of a parent run can be identified with the tag resubmission of the parent run's ID. You can get into the details of the parent run by clicking on its identifier and understand what was the input and output bindings of the trigger of the run or the run actions too. You can get into the run identifier of the child run to understand the details of each stage of the specific child run. You can also add an ignore tag to few of the runs so that these can be ignored for further investigation. Thus, with the help of tags, we overcome the challenge of lack in correlation between the parent and child runs at the case of resubmission. The beauty here is even if the Logic App run has been resubmitted through the Azure portal, still you can find the tag available in Serverless 360. Scenario 4 is auto clean old storage blobs. So consider here in fleet management system, wherein there are client devices sending telemetry information to an event hub from across the world. This event hub captures this data into an storage blob with the help of its capture capability. And meanwhile, it also triggers an event to an event grid, and this event grid passes on the event to the relay saying the blob storage file has been created which has captured the telemetry information. So this relay is actually exposing an on-premise service. So this on-premise service, whenever it gets to know that the storage data is now available for processing, it picks up the information from the storage blob. For various reasons, it just takes a copy of the storage blob information, processes the order, and then takes care of further processing. The challenge here is the content in the blob keeps growing, but it's not necessary when it is older than 5 days. So I need an automated activity that will auto clean these blob, whichever is older than 5 days, uh, without any manual intervention. So this way it will help me in preventing unnecessary cost being spent in my Azure storage. So here comes a capability from Serverless 360 that will help you in achieving the same at ease. So in the activities section of Serverless 360, we have got a new addition, storage account blobs activity. You can create an storage account blob activity which will help you auto clean your blobs by their age. You can select to fire this activity only on specific type of the blob, and you can define the age I can define like before, if the blob is created before 5 days, I want to get rid of it, or if it has not been modified for the last 5 days, then I can get rid of these blobs. So you can define conditions based on their creation and modified age, and you can set the frequency or enable scheduling for this activity to run on specified days and specified hours of the day. You can also define a termination condition by the number of occurrences or by a specific date. So this activity from now on is going to take care of automatically cleaning the selected blob type which is older than the specified duration of time without any manual intervention at all. Hence the goal is met. Number 5 is the monitoring for web apps. So this is a new addition into the technology stack. We understand a business application will be incomplete without web apps. So that is why Serverless 360 has got now an web app as a part of its technology stack. Let us consider an blogging portal as for better understanding this monitoring requirement. So this web app is through which the customer facing blog portal is hosted. So this is the interface that the customer would be looking at when they work with my blog portal. Hence, It is necessary to monitor this web app in various perspectives to ensure a better user experience. So I need to be aware of errors occurring in my web application, or I need to measure the performance of the web app. I need to have an eye on the performance. If its average response time is beyond a certain limit, I need to get a notification on. And I need to have an eye on what is the data flow through my web application. Let us see how Serverless 360 can help in achieving all this. So here is a composite application of mine that represents this blob portal, and I have got my web apps associated into this composite app. So we have got monitoring capabilities for web apps. So one of the primary requirement would be to detect the state of the web app without hitting its endpoint. So here you have a state monitor, either it can be a threshold monitor or a status monitor. You can associate a web app to be monitored on its state against the expected state. So this way you monitor the state of a web app without hitting its API endpoint or pinging its API endpoint. But this won't suffice, right? So as we discussed, we need to detect the errors. We need to measure performance, and we need to have an eye on the data flow through my web application. So here is the data monitor, which will let you define monitors on the exhaustive list of metrics available for our application. Monitoring for web jobs. So web jobs would play an integral role in a business application. There could be a number of critical actions that I need to take care of as a background job. So here in this blog scenario, I have got number of activities like backing up the blobs or backing up the author profile, backing up user comments or archiving top performing blogs, responding to the chat of the users as and when they come in, or mailing the authors whenever they create a blog article, notifying the reader for a new article in their area of interest. So there are a number of requirements like this. A few of them are triggered web jobs and few of them are continuous web jobs. So there could be a need for managing and monitoring them. And we have found a critical challenge in managing these web jobs through the Azure portal. Like when I have a number of web jobs to be managed, if the scenario demands me to modify the state of my web job. So through Azure portal, it is not possible for me to modify the state of multiple of my web jobs at a go. But here we provide an convenient interface that will help you modify the state of a number of web jobs at a go. So in the same composite application we saw a few minutes back, the blob portal has got a number of web jobs too. So let us see how I can modify the state of a number of web jobs at a go. So here I have my web jobs associated. I have triggered web jobs and I have got continuous web jobs too. I can select multiple of them and then choose to execute a run a triggered web job, or I can select multiple of my continuous web jobs to start or stop them. So this is achievable at ease using Serverless 360. And with respect to the year monitoring requirement, I would need to have this check on health of my web job at like at every hour interval. Then I can choose a status monitor which can help me in monitoring the state of my web job. Here I can associate multiple of my web jobs to a single status monitor itself, and I can configure the expected state of them. So this status monitor would send me and report every hour or at the configured frequency with the status of the web job. If I need to, this can also be achieved to detect violation using a threshold monitor, wherein you can associate a web job, multiple web jobs to a threshold monitor and have an eye on their state. APIM is our next key addition into the technology stack. The trend in the industry is like you have logic apps being exposed through APIM, you have function apps exposed through APIM, and you have custom on-premise applications that are exposed through APIM. And the need here is to monitor whether they are available without pinging its endpoint. And in an APIM, you could have a product, endpoint, and operations at various levels. So the requirement would be to monitor the APIM at various levels on various number of metrics to achieve monitoring on various perspectives. So let us see what are the different types of monitoring that Serverless 360 offers for APIM. So you can have your APIM state monitored using an threshold or status monitor. So here is a scenario wherein I have associated my APIM into a threshold monitor, and I am checking on its availability, checking on its status without pinging its API endpoint. Most importantly, like I have an API product associated monitored for its expected state. So to achieve monitoring at various levels and various perspectives, my choice should be a data monitor. I can associate an APIM product or APIM endpoint or APIM operations into an data monitor. And there is an extensive list of metrics on which the monitoring can be achieved. Say if my requirement is to check or detect any unauthorized request to my APIM, then I will have to configure the metric unauthorized request and detect whenever it is greater than a certain warning and error limit. Say if my system is highly sensitive and I need to know even if there is one unauthorized request, I can configure it this way. I can measure the failed request. I can measure the average response time of the APIM endpoint, product, or operation. So this data monitor will help you with extensive set of metrics available to let you monitor your APIM at various levels in various perspectives. Gem number 8 is an ability to save entity property as a template. Say, consider an organization where they want to define a standard in the entity definition. Say, any queue within any application in this organization is expected to adhere to certain standards. Say, like I expect that to have a time to live of 5 minutes one day because my organization's SLA is 5 minutes, and I need to the requires duplicate detection property need to be enabled in each of the queue that I create. So these things, if we do not define and template, there is it's absolutely left to the team who created. So I need to bring in a standard. So Serverless 360 will let you define a template which can be applied to the created entities at the time of creating entities. So here in the home section, you can find a new a menu that will help you define a template for a service bus queue, topic subscription, event hub, and release. So in this template, the size of the queue, the all the properties can be predefined and then kept. And there is another way of creating and template too. So imagine you have an entity which is working fine in the staging environment, and you want to save this entity's properties as an template. That is also possible. The very familiar properties menu in a queue now has got another option to save the properties of the queue as a template. So let us consider or assume you have already created these templates, and let us see how you can make use of this template or apply this template to create an new queue within this organization. You can just check this apply template to configure properties, select the configuration that you would need to apply, and then You can find the properties are automatically filled or imported from the a template that we have applied at the time of creating this entity. So with this, you can quick create entities, and this is less prone to manual errors wherein the user is expected to define each and every property, whereas here you can just apply the template as such. Number 9 is active message processing. So this capability was brought in to solve a number of our customers' real-time business requirement. Consider this e-commerce application. It is found that at certain messages in the active queue are left behind unprocessed by the logic app. And the requirement here is an automated activity that can find out those left behind unprocessed messages and move them into another queue so that I have an restoring application which will take care of reprocessing those left behind messages and restore the business. So here now you can create an activity that will help you in managing your active messages. So an activity can be created which would automatically manage the active messages. So here is a activity configuration. So we can perform or define activities that can resubmit and delete messages from the source queue. So I can define and resubmit action or resubmit and delete action which will pick up messages from orders new and place them into unique orders. If the target queue selected has got request duplicated action enabled, you can choose to regenerate the message IDs. Hence, we can prevent message loss. And this activity can be configured to run on specific days of a week and specific hours of a day, and end condition can be defined either by the number of occurrences or by a specific date. Last but not the least is an autocorrect on entity states. So imagine an e-commerce application in this figure wherein the logic app is listening to the service bus queue. What if the state of this logic app goes down late in the off business hours? Say like there are orders coming in from across the world to this e-commerce application, but I find that the logic app state has got disabled. So if it has to be manually corrected, then there is a considerable time lag in achieving or restoring the system. So now we have got we have enhanced the capability of our threshold monitor with an autocorrect capability. Any state-based monitoring, say we just saw APIM state monitoring, web app state monitoring, queue, topic, a logic app, a function app, all these are being monitored on their state for an expected state. So in all these scenarios, autocorrect can be applied. So when you enable autocorrect, if the state of the entity is not found to be as expected, so now I am just configuring autocorrect on. If the state is not expected running state, then autocorrect will try 5 times, like or whatever you specify here. The number of retry attempts is defines the number of times Serverless360 is instructed to attempt to recorrect the entity state. So here in this case, it's going to try 5 times to ensure that the state of this entity is matches with the expected state. And this happens without any manual intervention when you create your threshold monitor and define the autocorrect rules. So here is a quick summary of our 10 new gems in Serverless 360. We have come to the end of the session. We have got enhanced composite applications to depict your organization hierarchy. You can perform end-to-end tracking on your business processes, business transactions with the details on stages, how did they fail or why did they fail, can be accessed right from the tracking information itself. You can correlate your logic apps resubmitted runs. We have got capabilities or automated activities that can clean the old storage blobs by their created and modified uh, days time. So you can monitor web apps for their state and on various perspectives for HTTP errors or CPU utilization or response time. You can manage and monitor web jobs, modify the state of multiple of your trigger or continuous web jobs with the help of Serverless360. You can monitor APIM. You can save the entity property as template, and you can perform active message processing, and this can be scheduled event to automatically process left behind unprocessed messages back into the queue. And you can autocorrect the entity state with the help of autocorrect capability, which is there in the threshold monitors from now on. So Serverless Notes is a community initiative by Serverless360 wherein you can find and share your knowledge on serverless space. That is all from our side. Thank you for listening to me. Have a great day.